Hey everybody out there in internet land, this is Rich. I'm sitting here doing some editing for the episode, and I was putting it together, and I found a good clip of Jim Jones speaking about his early life, and I cut it down to only include the part that we've done in this episode. So it's 16 minutes long. It's at the end of the episode. You can make your own decisions as whether or not you want to listen to it. It follows. It's not going to tell you really anything that you didn't hear in our episode, but it does give a good insight into how Jones felt about some of the decisions he was making. It gives you an insight into his point of view on why he did what he did. And I think it's important for context. So yeah, you can make your own decisions. I suggest you would listen to it. However, make your own decisions. You're not going to really lose anything by not listening to it, but you will gain a greater understanding by listening to it. That being said, this episode contains mentions of suicide and ritual abuse and sexual abuse. So, yeah, you might want to, not let your little kids listen to it. Here's the episode.
Mountain blackberry Canadian water.
Clearly Canadian.
Connect juice.
I do. It's so good.
It is good.
It's very yummy.
Concerningly so.
Concerningly yummy.
Yes.
Clearly Canadian. I want you to sponsor me because this is such good water. Oh, man.
Have it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Drinking Canuck juice now, Storm? That's good water, eh?
Hey.
Pretty soon your head's going to start flapping about, and you'll be driving you got little beady eyes. You'll be driving cars with square wheels. These are all facts about Canada that I learned from South Park.
Gojira's just in the corner and you're like, what are you talking about?
He's doing his thing.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Charlie Manson's Fanny Pack. Look at Jessica. You didn't say the words.
She said the last three ones.
In my face.
She said the last
I had a
three
vape
words.
in my mouth.
That's all she said. That's not a word.
You gotta close it up. I heard her mumble it towards the end.
No, lies. You're just trying to.
I am trying to help you.
It's okay.
It's already on tape. You can't take it back.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
So,
Floppy.
Charlie Manson's Fanny Pack.
Charlie Manson's Fanny Pack. A Nifty Rocks Media production. I'm Rich.
I'm Storm.
I'm Jessica.
And today we are talking about Gojira and why he's a piece of shit and I hate him so much.
He pees on the floor.
A lot,
Loki's
apparently.
just going ham.
He is
Eating.
crunching aggressively over there.
Yeah, we probably if we could move that away from the mic, that'd be great.
ASMR. No. He's like, why'd you take my food?
I'm dying.
There's no light behind those eyes.
There's
still
not
love
anything
you.
behind the eyes.
There's nothing there.
No, he's got whatever
Lights
passes for
on.
kitty Down syndrome.
The lights are on, but there's no one home.
No.
It's okay, Loki.
He's a little downsy.
I still love my baby boy.
He's a little special.
I mean, he ran into doors as a kitten.
He did do that.
A lot.
And his tail's been like almost a 90-degree angle at the end.
And now he doesn't understand how doors work.
Yeah.
Like he'll close a door and then meow at it. That it's like, wait a second.
Why is it closed?
Like, how dare you? How fucking dare you?
He's also a very chunky boy. Come on.
He's wearing his high heels today.
Come on.
Trying to make biscuits.
Well, today and for the next several episodes,
By request of me.
by request of Storm, we're talking about J. Daddy Jones.
Jesus.
I don't like that.
I didn't
No?
either.
No.
No.
Cthulhu just sighed too. There it is. There it is. He's like, no, man, that's not it.
That doesn't track.
No.
Jim Daddy J.
No, we're gonna be talking about
DJ J.
Nope.
And the Jonestown crew.
No. About there's the Father Jones
and Reverend Jones.
We're gonna talk about them. We're gonna do that.
Even if we were Judeo-Christian, if we weren't communist, the world, the kingdom suffers violence, and the violence shall take it by force. If we can't live in peace, then let's die in peace.
Let's die in peace.
the TH that.
Yeah.
What? So, what do you know about Jim Jones, Storm?
The bare minimum. That's not how you talk. That word.
The bare minimum.
Yeah. So I knew a little bit, but once I mentioned it, because one of the things I've been interested in lately, so I was like, oh, this is neat. So I mentioned it to him. My father, obviously. He's like, well, let's do an episode on it. So ever since you said that, I've been purposefully avoiding information about it.
And I've been bombing her with,
And none
videos of his
working.
sermons.
Yeah.
Every time I click on it, the screen turns black, so...
So, the overall story is a man starts a cult, takes it to Guyana, and they all kill themselves.
That is what I know.
There's
Plus,
more
a couple
to that.
details
There is so much more to that.
Yeah, I avoided a lot just so I could watch that.
Honestly, they after the Jonestown massacre happened, they kind of played down how cool everybody was with Jim Jones. They kind of played down how awesome it was, and honestly, had Jonestown had not happened, we would be talking about Jim Jones today in a conversation alongside Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was that.
He was a vastly different person.
Yeah, he was that instrumental. He was that different. I really like Jim Jones in his early days, and that's kind of weird because he's his preacher, right? But there's so much more to it than him being a preacher.
Yeah. We heard in the really annoying guys.
Yeah, that stupid documentary. Yeah,
what was his voice? How would you describe it?
Yeah, we watched this documentary. I can't remember what it was called on YouTube, and it was this weird. He was it was like he learned how to speak half his life in Australia and then the rest in Britain.
It was like AI British.
Yeah, it was so weird.
Artificial British.
And there was all these good footage of Jonestown, but spliced with clips of Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. in the Zodiac movie,
which made no sense.
None whatsoever.
We were trying to make the connections, but it just wasn't
none
working.
there. There's none there. It was they had nothing to fill that spot. The guy was like, I like Zodiac.
Let's do this.
Loki, that's not. You don't drink that. It's closed. I don't understand.
Neither does he.
I still love you, Chunk.
So we gotta talk about. I guess we're gonna have to start talking with his early life, right?
All right.
I got Wikipedia pulled up here. A lot of any audio clips or whatnot that'll be mixed in after recording comes from the Jonestown Institute. You can find all the stuff there at jonestowninstitute.sdsu.edu. And that was all I needed to do to use their stuff.
Yep. So. You were telling me about that earlier. I was surprised it was so easy.
That's it. Well, that's because they gave permission.
Yeah.
I just had to do that.
Acknowledge. You have to cite your sources.
Yeah. James Warren Jones. JJW Jones.
Just stop.
No?
You're never going to make it better.
JW Jones? JW? Mm-mm. Anyway, was born May 13th in 1931. To Father James Thurman Jones and Lynetta Putnam.
That's a name. Why have I've heard that name before? It's Putnam.
Putnam? I mean, well, we go to We see it at cemeteries a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dead
I feel like it was in
there.
it was in a book that I've read. And I'm trying to place it.
Speaking of which, is getting ready to be cemetery.
It is cemetery season.
I'm excited for cemetery season.
We're gonna have to go. We got to go to the beach.
All right.
We got to go do that. We've been talking about it for like ever and haven't done.
Like 3 years now.
Yeah, I'm a shitty father. All right, so Jones's father, right?
Yep.
In World War I, he got mustard gassed in the trenches of World War I. And it fucked him up. Like, it gave him brain damage and lung damage. He would occasionally work on neighborhood repair projects, but the military pension he earned due to his wounds were insignificant. He would actually spend most of his time sitting at the pool hall getting drunk. He was kind of like Barney the Barfly on The Simpsons. Just the guy that's always at Moe's.
Just like, what do you do?
There was even an episode where Moe physically throws Barney out the door, says, well, that's that. And then Barney just appears behind him.
There's no
This is
season
where I
of Simpsons coming out.
Yeah.
Season 34.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been around a while.
Little outlaw.
According to many people, including Jones himself, his mother had no maternal instincts and frequently neglected her son. When he started to attend school, his extended family threatened to cut off their financial assistance unless his mother got a job. And her in-law family is the only reason Jones even existed. She married this guy, and he turned out to be kind of a dud, right? But her in-laws would help, but to get them to help out, she got pregnant. And that's what happened for a while. And it worked until eventually they made her get a job. Otherwise, they'd cut her off. So during his childhood, his parents were frequently absent. His aunts and uncles lived close by, gave him some supervision, but most of the time, he wandered the streets of the town, sometimes naked. He was cared for by the female residents of Lynn, and they would frequently invite him into their houses to give him food and clothing. So he was kind of already being raised by the
community.
By the community. His mom was an atheist, which was really rare at that time in Midwest America. So there was no like religious teachings and all that. But when he would go to these other women's homes, they were religious.
So that's where he
kind of picked up on it, and he didn't really have anything to do. So
they're like, "Well, you're taking care of me. You're going to take me to church, I guess."
Yeah, he started going to church. He started going to the Nazarene church. This one neighbor, Myrtle Kennedy, was the wife of the Nazarene church's pastor. Got attached to Jones, gave him a Bible, and encouraged him to study it. And as he grew older, he attended services at most of the churches in his town, which was Lynn. Often going to multiple churches each week, and was baptized in several of them. Religion became kind of a hobby for him, right?
Yeah, that just with the being baptized in multiple, it's like the theatrics of it, understanding the
right. And as a little kid, and it's kind of weird, but it makes sense. He saw footage of Hitler talking, and he actually kind of admired Hitler.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything to do with his Nazism.
Throwing my stuff around.
It wasn't Nazism or any of stuff like that. It was the pageantry of Hitler.
Yeah.
Right? It was the looked...
The theatrics.
Yeah, the Nazis looked good. Their fucking uniforms were designed by Hugo Boss.
Yeah.
They really were.
They were fashionable.
They were fashionable, and it looks good. And Jones kind of glommed onto that charismatic leader type thing. But as far as the ideologies of Hitler, it wasn't a thing with him. They would all play war, and he'd want to be Hitler. He also would have funerals for pets and animals in the neighborhood. He'd hold like these little sermons with
That's
other
awesome.
kids.
I don't know why, but I kind of like that.
It's like even like looking at that, it's like cultivating that persona.
Yeah. And he would always, and because he was going to all these different preachers, and he was picking up all these different like habits of how to talk with that cadence and how to manipulate people. He would always try and push himself. He wanted to be a preacher. He talked some kids into like putting themselves into coffins, and like.
What kind of talking you going through?
I mean, look, he was good at it.
He was charismatic.
You know, he was fucking good at
That
it.
charisma.
What are you drinking?
Canned grape juice.
Oh.
Oh yeah. So he began practicing preaching in private. His mother claimed that she was disturbed when she caught him imitating the pastor of a local Pentecostal church, and unsuccessfully attempted to prevent him from attending the church services.
It's almost like she knew, like, this is bad.
Normal.
Honestly, if Storm started preaching, at 10 years old, I'd be a little concerned.
I think we would all be concerned. Even myself.
Many of the people had sympathy for Jones because of his poor circumstances. He was an unusual child, obsessed with religion and death, as was I. Mm-hmm. Jones visited a casket manufacturer regularly and held mock funerals for roadkill that he collected.
That's a lot.
One neighbor of the Jones family stated that Jones killed a cat for one of the funerals. I don't know how much I believe that, right? That's some hearsay.
Yeah.
When he could not get any children to attend his funerals, he would perform services alone. Jones claimed to have unique abilities, such as the capacity to fly, once leaping off a building's roof to prove it, but fell and broke his arm. He nonetheless persisted in saying he had exceptional abilities. At times, he'd put children into life-threatening situations and tell them he was guided by the angel of death. He allegedly committed countless sacrilegious pranks in the churches he attended as a boy. Same. According to claims he made in adult life. He claimed that he stole the Pentecostal minister's Bible and covered Acts 2:38 with cow manure. Acts 2:38, and I guess, anyway, Acts is basically talks about how the church is supposed to be set up.
Yeah.
Acts is often talked about as like the socialist gospel, right? He also asserted that he substituted a cup of his own urine for the holy water once in a Catholic church. That's pretty cool.
That's kind of funny.
Pretty rad. Pretty rad.
Loki, you've already eaten. Stop it. You're going to make yourself sick.
One Jones biographer suggested that he developed his unusual interest because he found it difficult to make friends. I mean, although his strange religious practices stood out to most of his neighbors, they reported that he misbehaved in more serious ways. But he frequently stole candy from merchants in the town, and requiring his mother to pay for the thefts. He regularly used profanity, commonly greeting his friends and neighbors by saying, "Good morning, you son of a bitch." "Hello, you dirty bastard." Similar to his mother, Lynetta, who frequently swore in public and found amusement in people's offense at a woman cursing.
Yeah, I mean.
Jones' mother usually beat him with a leather belt in order to punish his misbehavior. He developed intense interest in social doctrines, became a voracious reader who studied Hitler, Stalin, Marx, Gandhi, Mao Zedong. He spent hours at the community library and would bring books home so he could read them in the evenings. Although he studied different political systems, he did not espouse any radical political views in his youth. But as World War II started, he developed an intense interest in the Nazi Party. He was fascinated by their cohesion, their pomp, which is their pageantry, and Hitler's total power. The members of the neighborhood found it disconcerting that he extolled Nazi Germany. He would act like a dictator around the other kids, ordering them to goose-step together and beat those who disobeyed. One childhood friend recalled Jones shouting "Heil Hitler" and giving the Nazi salute to German prisoners of war who were traveling through their town on the way to a detention facility. Commenting on his childhood,
though, like those soldiers were just like,
"What?
Oh, What's happening?
Jones stated once, commenting on his childhood, and there's actually, if you go onto the Jonestown Institute site, there's like several recordings that he called his autobiography where he just sits and talks about his life. So, I mean, this all pretty much jives with it. I was ready to kill by the end of the 3rd grade. I mean, I was so aggressive and hostile. I was ready to kill. Nobody gave me love, any understanding. In those days, a parent was supposed to go with the child to school function. There was some kind of school performance, and everybody's parent there was there but mine. I'm standing there alone. Always was alone. So, I mean, early on, he develops this sense of need to impress other people, right?
Because he didn't have that.
He needed to surround himself with his people, with people that understood him and loved him. It mattered to him because he didn't feel like he mattered at all as a kid.
Yeah, I get it. Do you matter, Loki? I think you matter.
I don't really think
You're just a little
in life.
special. Oh, special boy.
But so he ends up his parents separated. Oh wait, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here.
I noticed that.
In high school, Jones continued to be weird. He went by the nickname Jimmy during his youth.
No.
Jimmy the Jones?
No. Just stop. It's not going to work no matter what you do.
No.
Breathe as aggressively as you want. It's not going to work.
Vapes aggressively.
What flavor is your vape?
Juicy peach ice.
Mine's a strawberry kiwi. But mine's 0 nicotine.
Yeah.
Mine's 5%.
Loki 0%.
Of everything.
Of everything. He almost always carried his Bible with him, and he always dressed like he's going to Sunday school. He was one of these guys that dressed up in a suit and fucking shirt and pants.
What are the people I'd bully?
Like a 3-piece suit?
Yeah, he looked like a Mormon 24/7.
Someone I'd make fun of. God.
He also enjoyed.
Holy never.
He was an intelligent student who enjoyed debating with his teachers. He refused to respond to anyone who spoke to him first, and only engaged in conversations when he started them. In contrast to his peers, he was known to dress in his Sunday church clothes every day of the week. His religious views alienated him from other people. He frequently confronted them for drinking beer, smoking, and dancing. He would even interrupt other people's events and insist that they read the Bible with him. He was super square. The squarest of the squares. Right? This is basically how my grandparents and my dad and whatnot, this is how my dad's family wanted me to be.
Yeah.
They wanted me to be this guy.
See, and
if you were that guy, I guarantee you I would not like you as much as I do.
you have the capacity to be that guy.
Oh, the hate runs deep.
Yeah. Like the, what's the word I'm looking for? The charisma and the,
I'm not I don't have much charisma.
Well, I would beg to differ. Just like in that like particular setting, you'd be able to reel people in.
Yeah, I know what Christians want to hear.
Exactly. You could tell them their pretty lie and tell it well. So, and you could put that little razzle dazzle on it.
Razzle dazzle?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just picturing you pulling a handful of glitter out of a suit and just throwing it at people.
Fairies!
have one of the little flowers that squirt water.
Yeah!
All the little kids would love you. Be like, ha ha ha, you're so funny.
He didn't like sports because he detested losing. So he coached teams for younger children instead. This is the first time he really started to see racial differences. Jones was disturbed by the treatment of African Americans who were in attendance at a baseball game he attended in Richmond, Indiana. The events at that baseball game brought discrimination against African Americans to Jones' attention, and influenced his strong aversion to racism. His father belonged to the Indiana branch of the Ku Klux Klan, which enjoyed considerable support in Indiana during the Depression. Jones described how he and his father had a disagreement about race and added that they had not spoken for many, many years as a result of his father forbidding one of Jones's black friends from entering his home. Ultimately, Jones's involvement in organizing baseball leagues ended when he callously killed a dog in front of players by dropping it from a window.
I don't know how to handle that.
I don't.
Why would you? Why?
I don't know. I don't know.
But then again, like, also going back to just the theatrics and the, like,
You had food on your back.
He was trying to. I do think he was learning how people react to things.
Yeah.
And because he didn't have like a normal upbringing, he was raised by the whole community, and he's a Catholic, Nazarene, Methodist, atheist that carries the Bible around. I mean, look, sometimes dogs gotta go. I guess is where he went with that. It pisses me off. It does.
You have
and when I read about it before, I couldn't find why it happened. Right?
It just happened.
He just threw a dog out a window.
Is this like when Michael Jackson had held his baby? Like
blanket?
Yeah.
No, I didn't drop. Y'all ignorant. You're ignorant. That's not. I didn't hurt blanket.
The fight Blanket went through to change his name.
Did he?
Yeah. I don't know what he changed it to, but he fought for like 3 years to change it.
Why was it so hard for him to change?
I don't know.
That's going to be a future episode. Blanket Jackson.
I don't know what does he go by now? Hold on.
Well, he might have kept it private.
Yeah.
That might have been the purpose for changing it. Everybody's going to know you if your name is fucking Blanket.
Well, he wanted that people to stop calling him Blanket.
Yeah. But do continue.
His parents separated in 1945, eventually divorced. Jones moved to Richmond, Indiana with his mother, where he graduated Richmond High School in 1948 with honors, and early. Jones and his mother lost financial support of their relatives following the divorce. To support himself, he began working at Richmond's Reed Hospital in 1946. He was well regarded by the senior management, but staff members...
He changed it to... He changed it to Biggie.
Biggie Jackson?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not much better.
No.
I was thinking maybe Frank.
I was thinking something more basic. No, B-I-G-I.
Yeah, B-I-G-I Jackson. Maybe that's maybe it's By Guy Jackson.
That's how you... That's... No.
Biggie? Biggie? Jesus.
Speak of the devil.
I didn't drop Blanket. I didn't drop Biggie. Oh boy. Staff members would later recall that Jones exhibited disturbing behavior towards some patients and coworkers. It was a little weird, but he was also like he was the fun nurse that at the senior center. Like the patients were like really happy to see him. He was always jovial and upbeat.
Yeah.
He was really quick to take care of their needs. And this nurse he meets, Marceline Baldwin. She was a nurse in training while he was working there. He ended up marrying her.
All right.
And him and Marceline stayed married until the massacre. Like, she died with him.
Wow.
So their relationship, while it had ups and downs, she stayed by his side.
He's one of the few people that's actually ever had a successful marriage.
It's like, was it successful though?
It depends on.
There was no divorce within the first year, so
there was no divorce ever.
Exactly.
She was actually loyal to him.
Yeah.
And like, he was unfaithful to her, but there was a bit of an understanding there.
Yeah, if she didn't want to be part of that, maybe.
She didn't like it, but she was no longer able to sleep with him, right?
Yeah.
It became a thing. This is much later.
Wasn't she sick?
She was sick from something. I can't remember the exact things on it.
That's at a later date.
Yeah, she
We'll get to
couldn't, and so anyhow, so while he continued college, let's see. He began dating Marceline, moved to Bloomington, Indiana, where he attended Indiana University with the intention of becoming a doctor, but changed his mind. Then he got impressed by a speech while he was at Indiana University, in which Eleanor Roosevelt delivered about the plight of African Americans, which actually caused him to start showing support for communism and other radical political views for the first time. So communism at this time, like post World War II, pre Cold War, it's a thing that's known, but it's not demonized quite yet the way it will become. There was an active like Communist Party in America. A lot of like intellectuals and actors and people like that were going towards communism. And it was also pretty big in the civil rights movement.
All right.
A lot of people in the civil rights movement, like the Black Panthers and whatnot, they rejected capitalism because of its inherent like oppression, and capitalism sold them into slavery. So they became like radical socialists, and communists and whatnot. So they continued. Jones and Marceline continued their relationship while he went through college and married on June 12th, 1949. Their first home was in Bloomington, where Marceline worked in a nearby hospital while he finished up college. Marceline was Methodist, and this almost immediately ended their relationship. No. She and Jones immediately fell into arguments about the church. Jones's strong opposition to the Methodist Church radical segregationist practices was an early strain on their marriage. And throughout the duration of their relationship, Jones frequently, emotionally, and psychologically abused Marceline. Jones insisted on attending Bloomington's Full Gospel Tabernacle, but eventually compromised and began attending a local Methodist church on most Sunday mornings. Despite attending churches every week, Jones privately pressed his wife to accept atheism. So he eventually converted his wife into atheism.
I was like, look, bitch.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
And so I guess here it's kind of important to talk about his religious belief.
Look at that little Amity.
Yeah.
In the Jua. In the food.
For him, religion, he didn't really believe. He didn't believe in Jesus. He called God this. The Christian God called him the Sky God.
Yeah, Sky Daddy.
And Sky Daddy.
Yeah.
Sky Daddy Jones.
No, don't.
Actually,
even
that's kind of good.
No, I refuse it.
I like Sky Daddy Jones.
God, it's like you and Daddy Claus.
Hey, Daddy Claus isn't real, and he can't hurt you.
Bullshit.
Only if you allow him into your mind.
It's not even worse.
Open your mind. So his idea of religion, he saw it as a useful tool. He saw that people, he felt that there was kind of an inherent need for people to believe these things, right? Mm-hmm. And he saw that there were a lot of good things in these churches and the religion that weren't being practiced that could be. More like some of the more like communal social practices and stuff.
His church was one of those churches that were like, why are you integrating?
After attending Indiana U for 2 years, they relocated to Indianapolis in 1951. He began taking night classes at Butler University, finally earning a degree in secondary education in 1961. In 1951, the 20-year-old Jones began attending gatherings of the Communist Party in Indianapolis.
That is what? Just let me go to church. Communist Party.
Well, I mean, I was telling Storm while you had stepped away from the room. I was
disappeared.
a little
I
bit
went to
of
go get water.
yeah. I was giving her a little background. During the time communism, this was just after World War II, before the Cold War really started. The Communist Party was growing, and it gained a lot of acceptance in a lot of like the civil rights movement because of capitalism's inherent oppression.
Okay.
Jones and his family faced harassment from government authorities for their affiliation with the Communist Party all throughout 1952. He later asserted that in one event, his mother was harassed by FBI agents in front of her coworkers because she had attended a Communist Party meeting with her son. Jones became frustrated with the persecution of communists in the U.S. Reflecting back on his participation in the Communist Party, Jones said that he asked himself, how can I demonstrate my Marxism? The thought he had was infiltrate the church. So he was going to use the church as a launching pad to start preaching Marxism and socialism.
Yeah.
And let's see, where are we at now? We're at 34 minutes. So yeah, I guess this is a good point to start discussion for the end of episode 1.
All right.
How do you feel,
Just the
Storm?
opening of who Jones is.
Starting to add up to everything, you know.
Yeah, because in the next part, we're going to go into like the starting of his church, right? The way his church started and his early influences there.
I'm also realizing that I don't like how multiple cult leaders I've noticed. I kind of have like similar opinions to them. I'm like, I don't. Yeah,
me too. It's
I'm like, this isn't fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Jim Jones is like I always thought he was just like a religious preacher, and he was.
He was, but
on the
also
surface.
it was an act, a ruse.
Yeah, ultimately it was all for socialism.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're gonna call this the end of episode 1. We'll continue recording here momentarily, but
They don't have to know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tidbits.
whatever.
Tiddlebiddles.
So until next time, this episode is brought to you by Cthulhu.
And his confused
good
eyes.
boy.
He's such a good boy.
His confused
Yeah.
eyes.
His little floppy ears.
Yeah, he's got delicious floppy ears.
Yes.
In this ear,
Yeah.
in this paw.
He just
Yes,
sighed
paw.
at the feet.
He's got paws.
And now he's snuggling with Amity.
It was till you said something. You ruined it.
All right. Well,
But she beats him up, but she's
She
like
does.
6 pounds of nothing.
yeah.
Well, he's some pounds of something.
He's like almost, I want to say
She
probably
weighs.
around 50 pounds.
Eh.
But that little baby, she's
After a
fucking
meal,
Napoleon.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so all of this, like, all through, you can see it throughout his childhood, he was it was like, this is what he was always going to do. Yeah, he was always going to be the leader of a gospel movement.
Yeah.
Some sort of, like, religious movement. Yeah. Well, at the time, cults weren't really a thing, right? They existed, but Mormonism started as a cult. And 100
That
years
is
later,
true.
it's a religion that's accepted everywhere.
Not debatably
Well,
accepted.
I mean, you don't look at a Mormon. You might think, wow, they have some weird beliefs, but you're not like, whoa, that's a fucking weird guy.
Yeah.
Generally, Mormons are nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not
Generally.
necessarily in your face.
No. They integrated way after Jim Jones did.
Yeah.
They were racist for way longer than Jim Jones. So yeah, until next time, try to be like Jim Jones and don't be a fucking racist.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Jesus.
I'm glad it went there, not anywhere else.
Yeah.
What? What? He is a civil rights hero.
You could have mentioned all the other weird stuff that happened, like I don't know, the mass suicide.
Well,
not by
next
choice.
week we'll get into civil rights activist, the Reverend J. Daddy Jones.
Yep.
I wanted to start this thought. I'll never be able to.
And you would like to stop because you want to think. And it's recording again.
Why I became my own brand of Marxist. Looking in the childhood Regrets looking into childhood. Would I could talk as well as I think. That's presumptuous, but thoughts move rapidly through the mind, and it's difficult to capture them, to type them, to verbalize them. As a child, I was undoubtedly one of the poor in the community. I had less of material comforts, although my mother made every effort to give me what she could. My dad was ill, an invalid from World War II, World War I, a very bitter, cynical person. He spent so much time being engrossed in his own pain that he finally debilitated his health. Finally, his health totally was destroyed. There's a little town in Indiana. The moment I think of it, a great deal of pain comes. I don't think I shall mention it, although later brought out, because it's no way reflecting upon individuals, just a little Hoosier town on the Ohio line. Thus, I acted out against the conformities in the community. First way, because I was never accepted, or didn't feel accepted, I joined a Pentecostal church, the most extreme Pentecostal church, the Oneness, because they were the most despised. They were the rejects of the community. I found immediate acceptance, and I must say, in all honesty, as much love as I could interpret love. They were persecuted beyond measure for their beliefs. But after some time, intellectually I outgrew Pentecostalism, but still a rebel, still not a part of the society, never accepted, born as it were on the wrong side of the tracks. Thus, and facing the middle years, my memory dims, or perhaps it's because I have kept down much of the pain in my life in order to endure it suppressed. Because it seems that I've had a great deal of pain for people who at least live in the Western world, advanced societies. My pain cannot compare to those of the third world who suffer such misery beyond human description. But as I grew, I then at one point met a communist. I'm stepping past a number of things because of no particular relevance. And I do not see myself as a great skilled author, any skilled author. So thus I will confine myself to just patterns that may explain Jim Jones and perhaps help others from making some of the same errors. I also hope it will make it possible for some to reach the sensitivity that I've reached for people and for living things. This communist was beyond me in terms of intellect. I didn't understand all of the arguments. I was a very, very young person. I'd identified strongly with the Soviets for some reason as a youngster. When the Soviets were marching and news was praising them highly for their endurance in turning back the Nazi hordes in Stalingrad, I used to play as if I were a Russian soldier rushing through the snow and killing Nazis, driving Nazis to strike, driving Nazis back. It was a identification again with something outside of the American scene, perhaps because I used to play the role of a Japanese, because I have a certain Asiatic appearance, and people would be amused by my imitations of Hirohito or Tojo. Always identifying with something other than the American society, because it had not given me a feeling of acceptance. This communist, though apparently cold, befriended me in a way that no one had ever befriended me. I was working in a company and had developed a sense of egalitarianism, a sense of sensitivity to need of others, and at that point I both out of a sense of rebellion, someone who was more of a macho type personality and a racist, and I'd early developed a sensitivity for the problems of blacks, too, probably feeling as an outcast. I left my father's home early and had to go to work and live away from the home because I brought the only black young man in the town home to visit my dad and to visit my home, and my dad said that he could not come in. I said, then I shan't, and I did not see my dad for many years, or for some time thereafter, leaving the town, going to work at a very young age in a hospital, some 16 to 17 miles removed from the area. Anyway, this chap, as I tried to say, I'm rambling. I mentioned, I think earlier in the discussion, I mentioned that I rebelled against a certain macho-type racist, and I took money from him and did all sorts of sensitive things with it. I had a way of controlling the money of the salesmen, and they brought it in, and giving them credits for their sales, and I even shifted some of his money to another man who had a problem, as I believe, and I'm vague about it, but it seemed like a handicapped child. Then I took some money myself and utilized it as young kids do, I presume. At least this young kid did. Some of it sensitively and some of it, I think, as I recall, for personal indulgence. Anyway, I was apprehended. The questions arose. Something was wrong with the books. And this communist supervisor shielded me, utterly protected me. I don't know what he did. He must have made some adjustments with the company finances and utterly protected me from what would have been a terrible charge of embezzlement, I guess. And it was the only time I have ever done such a thing. Anyway, you can imagine the endearment I felt for this man. Then he came to my home. Was married at a young age. My wife and I came to my home after that. Of course, I gave up my job. That was worked out. I gave up my job, but with no bad record. And he dined with me, a lonely man. Perhaps, as I look back, perhaps he had other designs. He was a bachelor. He could have been. But anyway, for some reason he gave me his address and phone number, wanted me to follow it up. But life and its consuming pressures and having to get out and work to maintain my family, we were beginning to adopt a youngster at that time. So I didn't follow up for one reason or another and bore a great deal of guilt all through my life, because the one man that saved me at that time from certain prison I was in was controversial. I'd already developed my own controversial stance on race. I began to champion some of his communist ideology. And anyway, as I said, I don't want to give times or facts because the man may have long since gone through the situation, and he was a good man, and he may have made his transition to other views or positions. At least that moved me even further to consider Marxism, and I should call myself a Marxist because certainly no one taught me my brand of Marxism. I read I listened. Later in the university, I went back to the university and I met another couple of communists. I guess I sought them out. Old-time pro-Soviet communists. They were so gracious, they received me in their home. Father and son, the mother had died. Humble home outside of Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to university. Friendship again seemed through life to be extended by people of that sort. Or maybe I sought them out. I can't say with utter honesty, but I certainly was shown a great deal of friendship by those types. I only remember one communist in Bloomington who was very gross. Then, of course, my circle went that way. Those were the people I sought for inspiration. Then I developed a definite concept with the problems of the world, the misery of the world, 2 out of 3 babies going to bed hungry, as late as the Nixon years, when President Nixon pronounced that that was the case. I don't remember the statistics at that time, but they certainly must have been hard indeed. It seemed gross to me that one human being would have so much more than another. I couldn't come to terms with capitalism in any way. I wanted to. I wanted to retreat from this gnawing sense of conscience that pushed me forward. Then I decided, where can I demonstrate my Marxism? I demonstrated it in many places and almost got into trouble in classrooms. An agent checked on me because of my activities. It took me to a Paul Robeson event. I went through considerable harassments that are unpleasant and painful. My mother was questioned by the FBI for several hours, brought out and interrogated in front of her, set out in an open area where all of her fellow workers at the factory would see her, and she was a shop stewardess. And I recall thereafter was relieved because being questioned about my activities. She took the Fifth Amendment. In those days, you did not do that. That was tantamount to the mission of being a communist. And my poor mom knew nothing at all of politics. She was as apolitical as she could be, but she believed in her son, which certainly has helped. Perhaps to some degree it hurt, but I would prefer the chances of the kind of belief that she had. She was a little indulgent of me at times, certainly for her limited means, but solid as a rock of Gibraltar. And she endured, not knowing even what I was up to. They didn't even tell her that it was merely because I had been to an event where Paul Robeson sang and participated in Chicago. She didn't know what I'd done, but she defended me. She said, I refused to testify on the grounds it might tend to incriminate me. Oh, my son. So on down the road, I became even more alienated by that event. I decided, how can I demonstrate my Marxism? The thought was, infiltrate the church. So I consciously made a decision to look into that prospect. Particularly was it inspired upon me, I say to infiltrate the church, it really was brought to my attention by a very kindly, and I pause because of, again, feeling that it can reflect on others, a man who had a great deal of conscience that seemed to be compatible to my views, who was a church administrator of a denomination, and he encouraged me to think about being a pastor, and so I did. Very quickly did. I'd had my religious heritage in Pentecostalism, deep-rooted emotions in the Christian tradition, and a deep love which I share to this day for the practical teachings of Jesus Christ. There's always been a sort of dual concept, a doubter and yet a believer. I certainly had grave questions about anthropomorphic beings and a loving order to the universe. But Jesus Christ, to use a kid's phrase, greatly turned me on. And I tried very hard through my years in the church, whatever someone else might look upon my role, however they would look upon it, they could see a great deal of sensitivity to the Christian teachings. Not only my brand of Marxism, but in Pentecostal tradition, I saw that when the early believers came together, they sold their possessions and had all things common.